ඕක හරියටම හරියනවද වැරදිලාවත් නොදිනුවත් ගේම් එක?
නෑ සර් දින රුපියල් 1 කාසියක් හරි දිනනවා.
ඈ?
1 කාසියක් හරි දිනනවා දවසකට අපිට නිකනොත් කාසියක් වෙන දවසකට 10ක් විතර. ඒවෙන් ගන්න පුළුවන් සර්. සර් ඒක තියෙන හම්බ වෙන නිකන්. නිකම්ම ගන්න කාසිය.
ඒක කාසියක් කීයද?
නෑ කාසියට රුපියලක්වත් ගන්න අපිට නිකන් හම්බ වෙන්නේ. උපන්දිනේ දවසට කාසි ගොඩක්
නෑ
හම්බ
නෑ.
වෙනවා. $3ක්.
කාසිය ප්‍රයිස් එක කාසිය කොච්චර වටිනවද?
රුපියල් 450ක් විතර තියෙනවා. ඒක කාසිය. වෙනවා. එහෙම ඊට පස්සේ කාසි 6ක් 7ක් කාසි 1000ක් විතර ගත්තම 4000 ගණක් විතර එකතු වෙනවා. ඒක දැම්මම අපි පොතු 25000ක විතර ඒක ඕඩර් එකකට ඒක ගියාම ඒකේ එනවා කාසි වලින් ගන්න කියලා. ඒක ගත්තාම ඕඩරේ තියෙන ගාණත් අඩු වෙනවා අම්බානේ. ඊට පස්සේ ඒකත් අඩු වෙලා කාසි වල ගාණෙන් තමයි අපෙන් යන්නේ. රුපියල් 4ක් 5ක් විතර අපේ account එකෙන් කැපෙනවා. එනවා බඩුව ටික දවසක් ගිහින්.
එතකොට අපි ඔය ගේම් එක කරන්නත් සල්ලි ගෙවන්න ඕනද? නෑ.
නෑ සර් ඒකේ කාසි වලින්ම අපේ කාසි වලින්ම කැපෙනවා. තව තියෙන කාසි වලට වඩා තව අපි ගහලා හොඳට ගහලා ගන්නවා. දිනන්න. දිනන තරම තමයි හම්බ වෙන්නේ. නිකනොත් හම්බ වෙන දවසකට කාසි ගන්න. ඒ ඔක්කොම එකතු කරලා තියාගන්න. එක 1000ක් විතර එකතු වුණාම ගන්න කියන්නේ.
ඔන්න නදිල හොඳ වැඩේ ඈ. අපි කරලා බලමු නැත්තම් මම දන්නෙත් නෑ ඔක. ආනදිල
තාම එකතු වෙන්න දාලා තියෙන්නේ. එකතු වුණාම ගන්න. ගන්න හැකි කාසිය ඒ කාසිය එක කාසියකින් විතරක් ගන්න හැකි කියන එක. අපිට 600ක විතර එකක් ගන්න හැකි එක කාසියක.
බලමු
600ට හොඳ ඒවා තියෙනවා.
Right. Okay. Now, generally didn't hear the things what I said earlier. Generally, huh? Now we'll have a method to earn some money. Then Kavinu will teach us. Then we can buy lots of things. Okay. We'll see. Right. Now I am going to tell the thing what I told earlier. Earlier, I did mention about the method that how to read the written data on the optical disc, right? So now we know how was this written disc? Huh? How was the situation of this written disc? Tell me annually. Huh? How was the situation of a written disc? කොහොමද written disc එකේ situation එක? Can you hear me now, Pute?
Yes, sir.
Yes. How is the situation of a written disc? What is the yes, come on.
There are a lot of bits.
Yes, it consists lots of bits. It consists lots of bits. These bits consists lots of data, right? Now what am I going to say is how does this disc read by the laser beam, right? Now think, if we want to read some data from the written disk, first of all we are inserting the written disk to the optical drive. Then we are sending a signal by the computer to the optical drive to read the particular data, right? When we give the signal, the computer's motherboard sending the particular binary signal through SATA or PATA cable to the particular optical drive, right? When it receives the entire data to read from the entire disk, so when the optical drive receive the instruction to read data from the entire optical disk, it's sending the particular signal to the laser unit, When this laser unit receives the entire signal, it is starting to operate. When it is starting to operate, the optical disc also starting to rotate around itself by the motor and the spindle. When this optical disc is rotating, the laser beam also moving up and down by sending the beam to the surface of the particular disc. When this beam hitting on the surface of the laser, hitting on the surface of the optical disc, the pattern of the laser beam is going to be changed, because once he's hitting to the surface, flat surface of the optical disc, the pattern may be a different pattern. Once it is hitting onto the pit, which was located on the surface of the disc, the pattern may be different than earlier, right? By that, the pattern of the laser beam might be changed due to the bit pattern and the surface pattern. It means the particular laser beam is bouncing. When this laser beam is hitting to the surface, it's hitting to the surface and bouncing. Its bouncing pattern is changing due to the pit and the surface. The bouncing pattern of the laser beam is changing due to the pattern of the pit and the pattern of the surface. Understood what did I say? Generally?
Yes, sir.
Right. So, by this bouncing pattern of the laser beam, it generates some kind of data pattern. It generates a binary data pattern. Yeah, surface එකට වැටිලා මේ disk එක කරකිනකොට අර surface එක සහ patterns අනුව surface එක සහ අර pitch pattern එක අනුව මේ laser beam එක bounce back වෙනවා. මේක bounce back වෙනකොට අන්නේ bounce back වෙන pattern එකට අනුව data එක create වෙනවා. binary data එකක් create වෙනවා. Right? Then this binary data pattern is going through a data cable, SATA or PATA, to the computer's motherboard. Thereafter, this motherboard is sending the particular data to the central processing unit through the random access memory and the cache memory. Right? Once this central processing unit understood this signal, it is sending to present through the proper output device to the user. Understood it now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Nadila?
Yes, sir.
Is it clear to you all? Make a හොඳටම clear ද ඔයගලන්ට?
Oh, sir.
විසුල? Yanuli?
Oh, sir.
Right. Then start to write down this. Oh, Pute. Yes.
මෙහෙම එකක් එන්නේ සර්.
Baba. Coupon pals.
මේක දැන් සර් තමයි ලින්ක් එක දැම්මම සර්ට් එක කරන්නේ නැහැ. මේ තියෙන්නේ අකුන් දාන්න.
බලවුනේ මොකක් හරි කරන්න. මගෙත් එක්ක
ඔව් සර්.
ප්ලේ කරලා වාටත් සල්ලි හම්බෙන එක නැද්ද දන්නේ
නෑ එහෙම එකක් නෑ සර්.
මොකද මට ඔය ගේම්ස් පැත්ත මම ඇතෑරලාම දාලා ඉන්න පැත්ත. බලමු try එකක් දාන්න.
සර් ජොයින් වෙලාද ගහන්න
මං හිතන්නේ නේ ඒ වගේ මෙයා කියන විදිහට.
නැත්නම් මේ තනියම ප්ලේ කරන්න බෑ.
තනියම ගහන්නත් පුළුවන් එකපාරට. ඒ පුරුදු වෙන්න ගහන්න එක එක.
බලමු මොකක්ද වෙන්නේ කියලා. නේ එක සැරයක් සෙල්ලම් කරලා බලමු.
අනිසාම ලින්ක් එක දාන්න.
හරි. But not now, First you have to finish the class. Thereafter.
මොකද සර් දාන්නේ?
Huh?
මොකටද දාන්නේ?
මට දාන්න group එකට කවන්න නැද? group එකට දාන්න මට විනාඩියක් දෙන්න.
හරි සර් දාන්න. විෂය එකක් දාන්න.
Right. Okay. Now we'll write down. We'll write down quickly because we need to jump up to the next session. Right. Put today's date and start to write down. As per the early picture, we realized, as per the early picture, we realized about the situation of surface of the data return disk. When
මොකද සර්?
when reading data from the written disk, first should insert into the optical drive. First should insert the disk. First should insert the disk into the optical drive. First should insert the disk into the optical drive. Then, next point, then should send a signal. Then should send a signal or command. Then should send a signal or command to read data from the optical disk by the computer using an appropriate software. Using an appropriate software.
With an appropriate.
Using an appropriate software. Appropriate software. ඒ කියන්නේ computer එකෙන් මේ signal එක දෙන්නේ ඒකට අදාළ software එකක් පාවිච්චි කරනවා. That is why I did mention there using an appropriate software. Right? Next point. The entire signal. The entire signal receives the optical drive through a SATA or PATA data cable. Through the computer's motherboard. When the entire data when the entire signal, when the entire signal receives to the optical drive, 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 it is starting to operate. 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 It is starting to operate by rotating, by rotating, by rotating, by rotating the inserted optical disc, the inserted optical disc, the inserted optical disc, the inserted optical disc around itself, around itself, around itself, around itself by the motor and spindle, by the motor and spindle, by the motor and spindle. While that, next point, while that, W-H-I-L-E, while that, comma, while that, comma, the laser head, the laser head, the laser head of the laser head of the optical drive, laser head of the optical drive also starting to move up and down, starting to move up and down as per the commands and instructions, commands and instructions, commands and instructions, commands and instructions. What it received, what it received, what it received. Next point. When this head is moving up and down, when this head is moving up and down, the laser beam is locating onto the laser beam is locating onto the
Sir, when the shed is moving up and down,
the laser beam is the laser beam the laser beam is locating onto the locating onto the locating onto the locating onto the disk locating onto the disk locating onto the disk locating onto the disk but locating onto the disk but locating onto the disk locating onto the disk yes, locating onto the disk, only that, locating onto the disk. Then next point, locating onto the disk. Can you read that particular sentence again? Can you read the last sentence again? Read the last sentence, please. Read it loudly.
when the shed is moving up and down, the laser beam is moving onto the disk.
Not moving, locating. Locating onto the disk. Have you all written like that or locating?
Locate.
Locating onto the disk.
Locating onto the disk.
Yes. Next point. When laser beam is locating onto the disk, when a laser beam locating onto the disk, while the disk is rotating, while the disk is rotating, while the disk is rotating, the laser beam is the laser beam is the laser beam is bouncing back. Laser beam is bouncing back. When it's hitting, when it's hitting onto the surface of the disk and pits of the disk, onto the surface of the disk and pits of the disk.
Onto the surface of the disk.
ලියපු ටික කියන්න පුතා.
When laser beam is locating onto the disk while the disk is rotating, the laser beam is bouncing back when it's sitting on the surface of the disk, and
I can.
when laser beam is locating on when the laser beam is locating onto the disk while the disk is rotating, the laser beam is bouncing back when it's hitting on the surface of the disk.
Switching on, then I can switching on.
When the laser beam is locating on to the disk while the disk is rotating, the laser beam is bouncing back when it's hitting on the surface of the disk.
When it's hitting on the surface of the disk, when it's hitting on the surface of the disk, and it spits, and it spits, and it spits. The bouncing pattern of the beam, the bouncing pattern of the beam the bouncing pattern of the beam changes 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 due to the due to the due to the pitch and the surface, due to the pitch and the surface.
And the surface, the on the surface.
Next point, it creates the the entire pattern creates the entire pattern creates the entire pattern creates binary data. The entire pattern creates binary data and sending them and sending them and sending them to the computer computers motherboard through a data cable within brackets SATA or PATA, through a data cable within brackets SATA or PATA, SATA or PATA. Next point, when motherboard sends particular data to the central processing unit, central processing unit, central processing unit, central processing unit through RAM and cache, through RAM and cache, through RAM and cache. Finally, CPU, finally CPU analyzes them and send to the output devices, analyzes them and send to the output devices, to show us, Now have you all understood that how does data read by the laser beam? Have you all understood
Yes, sir.
it?
Yes, sir.
Kenoli? Nadila?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. Now we have already learned about data reading and writing technology. But keep in mind, these optical medium are not lasting long like magnetic mediums and solid state mediums. These optical mediums are not lasting long like magnetic mediums and solid state mediums. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Right. Also, have to say some other special thing. Due to the optical technology, these optical devices are dividing into three sections. One is CD, next one is DVD, next one is Blu-ray. Understood it? It's clear to you all? Is it clear to you all?
Yes, sir.
Kavino?
Yes, sir.
Right. Then we'll continue with the lesson after this link has created. Because another few seconds to end the lesson, end the session. When the link creates again, we'll start to continue.